Tonight's show, we'd just like to invite Rik Allen into the show. Rik's in to talk about the silent invasion. Do you want to give us just an intro to yourself, Rik, and then just a kind of intro to basically what you're here to discuss?
Sure. I've been into the paranormal and the strange for as long as I can remember, Chris. And for the past 25 years, I've worked towards one theory to explain what we're seeing in the world. I think there's enough circumstantial evidence that a theory could be advanced to what's going on. And my own belief is that all the different alien types, all the UFOs ever seen, all the cryptids that have ever been recorded are in fact part of the same military fleet. The cryptids are the ground force, the supposed different alien types, they're all genetically engineered. You're actually looking at humans that have been genetically engineered to look different. This fleet has but one sort of goal and purpose. They want our planet. If you look at human history, no matter where you go, no matter what culture, there's always been these beings, these entities that have been on the edges here, whether as coming down as angels, passing on information. I believe what they've been doing is effectively they've been getting us to farm ourselves. They've been giving us astronomy and agriculture, showing our ancestors how to harness these things, and then after a few thousand years have been coming back and cropping the population. It's believed that roughly there's maybe been 100 billion people that ever existed in the world. But I suspect there's been much more than that. And I believe that hundreds of millions of people have been taken over the past several thousand years by this other group.
Do you think the group, is the goal of the group, if they're to obviously want to control and take the world, why don't they just take it? Or is it a
That's
bit of both
question.
where they're using it and they're taking the people as a crop?
Yeah. First of all, they have what's called biological immortality, meaning as long as they aren't physically killed, they're able to rejuvenate their bodies and continually live. So as long as they're avoiding any sort of dodgy situations, in order to do that, you need human products. I don't believe that immortality is just a sort of a one-trick pony. I think you probably have to use medical resources and that. So they need the best food for humans to eat is other humans, okay? And I suspect that they need body products for people. So people say, well, if they were going to harm us, we would have done it before now. No. If they need the population, if they want to take billions of people, they need to grow the population to billions. And the other thing is, Chris, if they let us harness the resources, go into Earth, dig out iron ores and that, then that saves them doing it. There's over 1 billion cars in America alone. You can see how a UFO could just come along and pick up these cars, smelt them down, separate the elements, and they've got them. So there's that going on as well. It's not just so straightforward. The other thing is they're trying to maintain control. So when you look at all the major religions, I believe that these have been imparted by these other humans. It's a classic thing. Prophet comes for the sky. We often hear people saying, they were actually aliens, but we mistook them for gods. No, we didn't mistake them. They told us they were gods. So you can imagine the UFO coming down. Because what I believe they did was, I believe they tracked the groups of your ancestors. At first, their ancestors tried to hide for them. They tried to get away. But eventually, you could only run so far. And when they maybe come to a big river, maybe to the edge of the cliff, then they had to deal with them. The UFO comes down and perhaps footsteps a dog man, claims to be Anubis, shows them, look, if you follow our way today, we'll show you how to feed yourself better. We'll teach you agriculture. So when you look at the thousands of years of past, it's just been an ongoing thing of passing on technology that allows our species to jump in big advancements. And they're still doing it, because see these so-called UFO crashes, I don't believe there's been a genuine UFO crash. I believe it's all been done on purpose to put technology over to the different groups, and they have to do it, because if they do it to the Americans, if they want the Russians to get up, they've got to do it to the Russians, and they've got the Chinese. And what they also do is they put different types of alien in these different craft to reinforce the idea that what's happening is that everybody's dealing with all these different types, when in fact they're really just dealing with the one type that are, and it's these group of humans that are behind everything else.
And that's the kind of thing that we talked about just earlier before we came on, in regards to like the people witnessing the greys or things like that, having like no genitalia or like
there's to me there's a clear problem when you look at these so-called different alien types. For one thing, have you ever noticed that their skin color is the opposite of healthy humans? So you get greys, you get blue ones, you get green ones, you get pure white ones. There's never actually been one yet with the same kind of skin color as us, because what they try to do is they try to accentuate certain features in order to keep us thinking, to realise what we're looking at. I mean, if you look at a grey, with real advanced genetics, I didn't think it would take much to create a grey. I mean, for starters, if you got the genes for the height for a pygmy, 4-foot pygmy, but left in the genes for a normal sized human, if you reduce the bottom jaw, if you take all the teeth out, if you increase the eyes 3 times the normal size and make them the shape of almond shape like the white-tailed deer, if you remove the cartilage for the outer ear, the cartilage for the nose, reduce the muscle in the lip, you could start to see remove all hair follicles, because these are all just genes that once they're removed, that's it. And once you've got the perfect one, all you have to do is then take a genome fit and copy them all. So there's no genetic diversity here. You know, this is what I believe the greys are like drones, Chris. You know, like say drones that you get in the worker. You know, that's what I think you see. And sometimes there's a different status. So the tallest one will be the one that's in charge. You know, for supposedly having the same intelligence with us. I mean, the lark just even the features to communicate tiny sort of micro gestures that come with all sort of really advanced intelligent species. And
that's the thing with that's the thing with what people say, where there's like a lack of emotion, or there's no kind of features like that in regards to, it's almost like as you say, like a clone, a drone, or like an AI type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at it, you didn't think it's threatening to begin with, because you just see these big eyes, a big head. But once you have an abductee, he's been lying on his back with 3 of them standing around about them. You know, you look up and see that face. Now, they didn't have to awaken them, Chris. They could, if they really wanted to take eggs and that, they could leave them quiet, but they didn't. They waken them, tell them they're not going to hurt them, push a needle into their stomach or stick a probe into them, which is sexual assault. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's it. So then these people are left with PTSD, which is a sign often a sort of sexual survivors have. Mm-hmm. So what you're seeing here is pain all the time. People think they're harvesting fear. No, they're creating fear, because fear is how you control a massive group of people. So you didn't always have to send in a god, but if you put someone that's demonic, someone that scares them, then that's no longer turning them back towards religion. And it's very clever, because sometimes things like the Rik or the Wendigo, you'll often get witnesses that will cry out, Jesus, save me. And the Wendigo maybe stop right in its tracks. You know, they'll stop right there, because when that person then goes and tells the story, they tell the story how they cried out to Jesus and the demon had to stop. It's very, very clever. It really, really is. And it's all going towards one thing. And you can see them ramping up the pressure. So I reckon in the mid-90s, sort of all these things had went to the minimum level. Since then, everything's been increasing. Dogman sighting, Rik sighting, Wendigo sighting, Bigfoot sighting. And now we're starting to see them team together. So there's reports of dogmen being seen with Sasquatch, because they're all in the same force. Now, could you imagine how all they have to do is step out the woods, Chris? Once they step into society, society just shuts down. And in the mid 1990s, and I think it was Delhi in India, there was reports of the monkey man. For 2 weeks, 10 million people in the entire city just shut down because nobody would go outside. That's the effect. And see, when you hear them talking about the New World Order, I believe the New World Order isn't about the Illuminati. It's about these things coming because they're going to want to take control of the world again. And I know that's a difficult concept. But look, America's at the point now that they're starting to release information. It's all out there now. It can't be held back. And what they do is the alien thing is always to divide and conquer. So people are seeing them, just working class people, they're seeing them. The government's denying them. Everybody knows it's going on, but all it does is create mistrust and causes separation and division. And what do we actually do? So I've heard sort of people in Ancient Aliens saying, "Oh, look, it's the Greys that are bad. We need to get help for the Arcturians." No, all we're doing now is inviting them in. Look, think of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Millions and millions of people every day chant this. And it doesn't matter what religion it is, okay? They just can't make them all the same religion because then if that religion turns, lose control of them. So what you'll see is Christianity, 2.2 billion Christians, billion Catholics, then Orthodox, Protestant, then you split them up. You get mystic versions, you get liberal versions, and it keeps breaking down and breaking down. And this is how they do it. So whether it's angels, aliens, cryptids, or demonic, I believe these are the bio forces. These are bio weapons. I also believe there's another division that I call the EMEs, electromagnetic entities. And these are the ones that are the shadow people, the orbs, the poltergeists, thing like that.
Yeah.
And I believe they're created for what's called photonic matter. When you've got two torches and you cross the beam, they didn't interfere with each other. That's because photons are massless. Well, in 2018 at MIT University, scientists managed to bond 3 photons together, Chris. Now, I know that this doesn't seem impressive, but what that means is then you could add mass to the photons and you can build them up. And do you remember the Skinwalker Ranch episode where the security guard dragon shoots the wolf and the chunky blood flies for it and it doesn't back down a lot? It was only one of the ones where this happens. Now,
I think it was that happened before they got there. That was the Shermans that done that when they shot.
Right.
Aye.
Right. So, but you can what happened? It was shot at point blank range. It didn't react to it. It didn't. These are things that I believe are made for photonic matter. Because what should have happened is that the impact of that should have at least knocked it on its feet. Just like when somebody's wearing a bulletproof vest, the bullet maybe doesn't penetrate, but the impact of getting hit with thousands of pounds a square foot should knock you on your back. So I think there is the shadow people are probably the best example of photonic energy. So if you imagine the pictures on your television screen, right? There's radio waves. What I'm suggesting to you is, in thousands of years, the technology gets so advanced that it doesn't need a screen, that these things can take 3-dimensional form and act in the 4th dimension, i.e. time. They're able to interact. So if we speak about the shadow people, you hear sort of things, they're leaking down for a higher dimension, or maybe it's a spirit for some. No, that doesn't make sense because they're able to interact directly. They can peek around corners. They look at you. They know how to sort of stay in your vision.
Yeah.
That's what I believe it is. I believe this is a different division of the same army that I call the energy division. EMEs, I call them. Because you know how it is, mate. You see them when they're out on their paranormal investigations and then the lights start to go off. Cameras die. Because what's happening there, I believe, is the electromagnetic energy that's coming for these things then interferes with the electronics of the devices getting used.
It's either that or it's pulling the energy out of them or something.
Basically, it's upsetting the sort of flow. But there's someone else, because often you will hear reports say lights that are switched off, lights going on. And if you have electromagnetic energy, Chris, you're able to form electricity. So if they place their bodies upon these electrical devices, they're actually creating a surge in electrical energy. So you will see these electronic equipment going on. So I think this is how they're doing it. See, I don't believe there's any such thing as magic. I think everything could be explained. Arthur C. Clarke says, when we're confronted with superior technology, we will call it magic. And that's what's happening. Because just as if you tried to explain to Neanderthal how a mobile phone works, it wouldn't make any sense. There's a bigger gulf between us and these other humans than between us and the Neanderthals. I really believe that. And when you look at the solar system and that, there are yellow dwarf stars, which is the same as our sun, that are almost 1 billion years ahead of our sun. So that means there could be civilizations on there that's hundreds of millions of years more advanced than what we are. It's not in the realm of possibility. And I didn't think that this happens with all human species. I think some of them didn't get off their planet Earth. They probably get hit by asteroids and their technology is wiped out, so they kind of fall into some harmony with them. But every now and again, there are ones that are able to develop enough technology to get off their own planet, to start building some sort of defense system that can prevent asteroids or that hitting their planet. Because there's a major asteroid hit every 26 million years. So for the beginning of our planet, there's been 190 major ones. I'm assuming that'll continue to be the case, and that's not involving the smaller ones. What's happening now is the reason why they're pushing us with so much technology is they want to build us up before the next asteroid hit comes or the next caldera explodes under Yellowstone Park or something like that. The space is a dangerous place. So I think this, when you look at it through this lens, I think this explains what's going on.
So if you're looking at all these different like entities and like if they're all part of the same thing, is there anything out there that's good?
No. No. It's all, listen, they play good cop, bad cop.
I mean, you're just froze.
And it's so, for example, you go back 10 years, people were a bit dodgy about the Sasquatch. But now when you compare them to the dogmen, the Sasquatch look good. It's really, really clever. So they all seem to be, so the Greys say that the Arcturians are bad, the Arcturians say the Pleiadians are bad. It's all this is going on. It's just about turning ourselves against each other.
Well, you're right what you're saying. There's always been stories, for example, the Greys or whatever. I mean, whatever type of entity it's been, or non-human intelligence. But then it was always kind of portrayed as like the reptilians were worse or whatever. But then there's loads of reports where you see them together.
Yeah, that's right.
With humans as well.
Exactly.
I mean, exactly. And all that kind of stuff. I mean, and to what you're saying, I mean, I look at the theories of what you're saying. I mean, there's interesting enough. Have you read any Paul Wallace's books?
No, me no.
No. So Paul Wallace used to work for the Vatican, and I might be ragging. I'm sure I'm right in saying this. I mean, but he was done a lot of the transcripts and stuff like that, the Bible and interpretations of it and stuff. And for what he used to teach it. Right. And so he wrote a book. I'm sure it was the one I'd read recently was called Escaping from Eden. The other one was called The Eden Conspiracy. And then within, he'd said that the reptilians were actually written through the Bible. Yeah. You can find it and you can see it.
Yeah.
And he also said as well that the thing is where that when a lot of the kind of Bible referred to God, he said it was like more like it should have been a plural. So it wasn't like gods, it was like gods. And the way they described it read totally different in regards to like a god. It was like gods, or it was like basically he was saying that it was like transmedia. We've basically been the same kind of idea where we've been put here and we've been genetically developed and then developed back and forth, and there's been civilizations wiped out. But I mean, it's an interesting kind of topic. What kind of gave you the drive to kind of research this then overall?
Well, you're going to laugh at this, but see, when I was 20-year-old, I was on an acid trip and I decided I wanted to solve the mystery of the Sasquatch because I always believed it was real. So I've had these kind of things, but as time went on and I realized that what science was saying wasn't right, there was gaps in the scientific theory about things. But see, just touching upon what you're saying about this seeding the planet, I believe that humans are the only ones that haven't actually been dabbled with. And the reason for that is in the fossil record, you could find, the development coming to modern humans. There is no fossils record of dogmen. None of the cryptids exist in the fossil record,
Hmm.
which that's real strange. There should be an evolutionary path, but there's no. So what they want us to do is, look, if you believe in the Bible was written by God, then you believe God the Spirit made us and we return back to heaven. If you believe God's an alien, you believe the aliens genetically engineered us and they want to take us back to heaven. Because don't forget, right now, the Christians believe that the rapture is going to happen, where Jesus will come back, come down from the sky, and take them away.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
That's
that kind of story with the rapture story in regards to religions is like people believe that's going to happen. People believe it's going to happen in regards to the experiencers. They think it's going to happen in regards to no for a religion point of view, but they think it's going to happen with a kind of, and that's, I mean, this is no my theory and like that. This is like loads of experiencers and a lot of different books and a lot of different witnesses or stories coming from witnesses is that there's going to be some type of rapture event and it's coming
yeah,
and it's like aliens are going to be coming or ETs or
yeah,
whatever it is it's coming, right?
yeah,
But the interesting thing as well, just some of the stuff you're saying is, so I referred to the Paul Wallace thing, who said he'd said about the kind of farm thing, and he basically described it through the Bible. This guy worked in the Vatican. I'm sure the Pope commented in his first book it came out. I'm sure it's
right,
the conspiracies or something, but I'll look at the links and I'll send you it. But
yeah.
that was one aspect to it because I like the whole kind of farmed aspect. I latch onto that bit of it, and it does sound nuts and all that kind of stuff. But
But look,
I
the
mean,
Lord is my shepherd.
mhm.
If you look in the book of Revelation, it says the angel thrust in thy sickle and harvest to take the harvest to the earth because the harvest is ready. That's talking about people.
Yeah.
You find the farming metaphors again and again, laced all the way through, lambs to the slaughter, that sort of thing.
On that note as well, we like and I refer to this a good few times, like Robert Monroe for the Monroe Institute.
Yeah,
The Monroe Institute, if anybody doesn't know what it is out there, I mean, they developed, it started off developing like ways to astral travel better.
that's right.
And then it linked into a lot of different stuff, developed stuff for the US government in regards to making remote viewing work a bit easier
Yeah,
with hemisync and stuff like that, but basically separating the right and left part of the brain to make it easier and things like that. So he was well ahead of his time with doing this kind of stuff. And I mean, he went into it with astral traveling and gone back through past lives and then going back past the past lives to wherever he came from before that. And then when he was looking at um, coming for, let's say, beyond, and he wasn't for Earth at this point. And from what he described as what we were here was that it was the whole kind of farm scenario. And there's a thing called lush, which he said there was a byproduct we put off that was farmed, right, through time. And originally it was for something, and then eventually the most kind of, he described it as the most potent point of this lush was like, and it's generated through love, right? And they say that it was generated through, at the start it was more prevalent during wartime and wars and things like that, but then they found out more that love generated. So it wasn't a negative thing at the end anyway, he was saying. But I found that interesting, the part of the whole farm thing. And then recently as well, obviously it's threaded through like the experiencer kind of thing. But if you know the work of Dolores Cannon was basically done a lot of regression for the
yeah,
60s. It was like basically helping people
yeah,
for like hypnotising them for stop smoking and things like that. But it ended up going into abduction scenarios and stuff like that, and then going past lives, and then it ended up going past lives and back to past civilizations, past
yeah,
lives. and this isn't coming from, I know I'm going to have a wee bit of a tangent here, but this wasn't just coming from one source. It was multiple different people saying the same things,
Yeah.
right? For past lives or past life regression for like ancient civilizations. And they talked about then that it was about like things like crossbreeding, but hybridization to actually animals. And then that was one of the, because of that, that's one of the cataclysms that wiped a lot of people out because they were doing that kind of stuff. And then maybe something survived. But but the whole kind of thing anyway was the Dolores kind of thing went on to other stuff, and it was all to do with us being farmed again. And then there was like different entities involved, you know what I mean? And then they all had different agendas in what they were doing here on Earth in regards to but the way she described it was some were looking out for us, some were indifferent, some were using it as a laboratory,
Yeah.
some were
It always breaks into three.
some were using it for their own gains, and some were just nefarious and ignored the rest of them.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of, and when you see that this thing cropping up time and time again, for different angles, for a religious point of view, for somebody who's visually seen it today in astral travel and stuff like that, and whatever, and then somebody who's actually gone through a regression type thing into the past lives and history and that. And she's done this since the 60s. I mean, she's dead now, right? But I kind of find all that totally interesting. It links into the same kind of things that you've got your theories about in that as well.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, like, say, things like, say, Stonehenge and that, Chris, you could see that it's calibrized for a certain area. So for maybe 2,000 years, the sun rises at a different point, and then when that time passes, or when you move further north up to Scotland, they're calibrated to a different point because you would plant later in Scotland and things like that. Yeah. So what you find is these massive stone calendars, I mean, they serve a lot of different purposes, but ultimately they're always calendars because they're fixed in the air. They're taught how to reap, when to plant, when to do it. So within a few generations, you could go for hunter-gatherers. You show them irrigation, just basic techniques. I mean, look at what they're discovering in the Amazon now. You know, there was millions of people and bits that they thought was virgin rainforest. There's what they thought was virgin rainforest in the Congo, wasn't it? It had palm nuts there. And this is what we're finding again and again, because they grow a bit, let it revert wild, and they've been doing this all the way through. And like I say, I've so far 25 civilizations that have went missing. So I think we're talking hundreds and millions of people, because look, millions of people just kind of disappear. If they move north, south, east, or west, they leave a trail. The only way to disappear without leaving a trail is to go up the way. And when you look at their religion had an end time where their gods were coming back to save them from destruction of the world. It's the same theme that's played over and over. So the Muslims have an end time scenario. In Hinduism, there's an end time scenario. There's all these different things. And if you're a Hindu, you believe that. If you're Muslim, you believe that. If you're Christian, you believe that. Ultimately, what it's all saying is someone's coming back from the sky, coming down to earth and taking people away. That's what it all boils down to in the end, mate. And what they do is they create so much confusion because, say, for example, past lives, right? Say that, right? Do you start as an amoeba? You know, do you have so many lives as an animal? When could you stop the process? And what about nature? What about when nature says, look, yeah, there's a population explosion and it's needing new souls? How does that work?
Yeah.
So see when, and in the end, that comes from probably Hinduism, certainly one of the Eastern philosophies.
Yeah.
What it does is it clashes with Christianity.
So
what you'll find is, they all ultimately say the same thing. They're all about a small group of people controlling massive groups of people. That's what it always comes down to, mate. So this is what you see again and again. So whether you are calling in the gods or whether you're asking the aliens to come in because we need the Arcturians to save us for the reptiles, or the Zeta Greys will save us for the Pleiadians, whatever it is, it's all a big massive deception. It's all a big psyops campaign. The only thing that really explains it is when you look at it through the lens that they're all bad. How can there be? How could every culture have angels or aliens or cryptids? How could they always be there through everyone? You know, and like say you're talking about like the past life regression. Well, don't forget, I'm saying the shadow people is photonic matter. You know, they can build different ones that come back as King Xerxes or come back as a spirit who was at Atlantis. Their technology is so far ahead. It's unbelievably frightening. And didn't forget, I mean, there's over 100 sort of alien species types been identified now, and there are some that are supposedly pure energy. What do you think that energy is, Chris? It has to be photonic matter. You know, and these ones are so advanced they've now left their bodies behind. No, it doesn't work like that. You can't leave your body behind. You know, the group of humans that are doing this, I've called them the Pesha. And PESHA is an acronym. It starts for parasitic, engineered, cannibalistic human aggressors. Because I had to find some way to differentiate them for us. So they have
So would you,
engineered.
these actual humans, you would say?
These are actual. These are, for the want of word, these are the gods. These are the ones that control. These were all born of women, right? They took control of their own planet, and then they created, because don't forget, there's no morals now. There's nothing to stop it. Why would you put a young person into a battle scene when you could produce a dog man, make it psychotic? See, we think of a super soldier with the night vision goggles and the big AK-47. No, no, no. A super soldier is just standing there like a dog man. Absolutely nothing. Doesn't need nothing. Doesn't
Yeah.
need a weapon. It is the weapon. You see, and already biotech companies have started, patenting genes in order to do this. They're now actually starting to create their own super soldiers because there's nobody to answer to. There's no parents to inquire about their child's sort of death, anything like that. Unfortunately, this is where it goes with all human civilizations. Once genetic engineering, once the genie's out the bottle, there's no going back, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at CRISPR technology, what it can do now is just simply amazing. So all different bits. So even if the Americans say we're not looking to build super soldiers, they can the Chinese are, so they're going. This is why they want to get a hold of the cryptids, because they're trying to understand where the cryptids are coming from. And let me assure you, none of the governments of the world have any idea what's going on. Or they could tell you that there's been crashed UFOs. They can maybe tell you who's got what UFO, but they're getting deceived as well. You know, they're getting played as well. Everybody's getting played. They're none of them our friends. They're all our enemies, mate. All our enemies.
Well, that's what you think when you look at genetics and like Dolly Sheep. What was that in the 80s? That was like late 80s, was it not?
I certainly around about that time, maybe beginning of the 90s, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a clone. So there it started. So once you start thinking about it, what could be done, there's a jellyfish. It's called a mortal jellyfish. It grows and then goes back to its juvenile stage. So see in the Bible when it's talking about the tree of life, Chris, what it's talking about is all the genes and the branches of the tree of life. If you have access to all these different genes, then you can make yourself immortal. But there's a terrible price to pay for immortality. Because the first thing it has to stop, if death stops, breeding has to stop. And if breeding has to stop, well, what's the point of having one? Because look, on Earth, you're married maybe 70 years very top. Yeah, that's what a normal couple is. You try and be a couple for thousands of years, I'll guarantee you what's going to happen. They're going to split down, they're going to be regrouped, different bonds for you, because what they don't want is pair bonding. You have to be bonded to the colony. You have to do absolutely everything to be in this group, including castrated. They're also castrated. Because what's the point of having testicles hanging down that get ripped off in an accident? An accident only happens once every million years because you fall down the stairs. But if you try to live forever, these things come into play, Neva. These lawsuits actually happen. Exactly. And this is why you see some of the cryptids, again, like the Rik and that, they didn't have nothing dangling down because they'll get ripped off going to a branch. But then again, neither does a grey. So we're getting all these clues that there's cloning going on, there's genetic engineering, everything going on. If a lion is a cat person, well, swap the cat genes for dog genes, and you've got a dog man. It's just the same thing. It's all getting moved about, and it's a difficult thing for people to accept.
Oh, totally, aye. I mean, it's harder than that. You mean you can't, and I know a lot of its theories and that as well. But I mean, I know I get where you're coming from. Because like there's a lot of kind of this information's out there in different facets, and it's like put
Yeah,
it all together and stuff. I understand it,
yeah.
but
See, they
it's
take
hard,
the
you
truth.
can imagine. You can imagine like it's hard enough to explain to somebody that there's maybe like a Sasquatch sighting, let alone a dogman sighting,
Yeah.
let alone seeing them
Never
together
mind
in a
say,
sighting. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
exactly,
Or
exactly.
and
And
then,
what,
and then let alone try to link it to
yeah,
the fee. They're no actually fee here. They're fee somewhere else and all that
that's
kind
right.
of
They're
stuff.
actually an alien species. You know, they might have used genes for this planet. You know, they maybe took the gorilla genome, the wolf genome, and took bits for it. But they've been created and put down on this planet. And it's very clever because, I mean, even things like Nessie, Loch Ness Monster. Look, how difficult do you think that is to make that? You know, I suspect that the body's for a seal. You know, take the genes for a giraffe to make the long neck, give it the box head, the horse, you know, put the flippers, and you find these things again and again. So see all these so-called monster sightings across the world. They take them out of one loch, put them in a different lake, take them out, put it like that. And what this does is, what they're trying to do here is they make us doubt reality. You see? So, and if you didn't think that's working, Chris, there are actually people who think the earth is flat. You
Right.
know, everything's starting to, what was taken as truth is now falling to bits. So, and there's this nonsense about the veil thinning. No, there's no veil. There isn't any veil. This is all just an illusion that somehow something's seeping through. Nothing's seeping through. It's getting put down. And they know, the Pesha know, at some point it's going to be worked out. Now, to give you an example, see somebody like Paul Sinclair, right? I have no doubt somebody like Paul has been selected on purpose for this. When you read Paul's book, The Night People, the things that are going on for him, that were happening to him, you know, they could only be explained by technology, right? So he awakes and sees six greys in his room, but then I could go to the Bible, Luke 24:31, and find where Jesus suddenly appears in a room, teleported in, you know, and then disappears out again. It's like the missing 411. I'm willing to bet the majority of them, what's happening is the UFO's up, it's above there, it's punching in the coordinates. When the person walks into these coordinates, bang, because they would just disappear in an instant. You wouldn't see nothing else, they would just simply disappear in total silence. That's what happens with a portal, Chris. That's what's going on. It's the only way to explain it, but they do different ways. So sometimes maybe a dog man will be seen. So the dog man will take a child, the child gets to see the dog man, dog man keeps it for a couple of days, dog man returns it, child says, oh, the bear man took me away, just to keep confusing it. They always try to put in red herrings in order to upset what's thinking.
Interesting in that enough. I was talking about that story last night. Who was I talking to about it? About the missing 411 anyway, and about the story where about obviously people going missing, and just try to give them a quick synopsis of what missing 411 was. And I was talking about the stories where children gone missing, found like up a mountain or 14
Yeah,
miles away, or two mountain
exactly,
ranges where they couldn't have got there, and then
exactly.
saying that the bear man had looked after them or
Yeah,
whatever and things like that.
that's right.
And I mean, these stories are out there. You know what I mean? These stories kind of happened, and that's what the kids said happened, and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
they go. I can think that story where it was a case of somebody tried to traverse the kind of distance and couldn't do it, and they were like a survivalist or
yeah,
an
an
ex
adult.
special force or whatever.
Yeah,
Couldn't do it. Just basically said that's impossible to
yeah,
do, even for like kind of that guy to traverse like the mountain ranges to that
yeah.
point where that Wayne was. But I mean, it's which so like, in regards to like your dogman stories and things like that. I mean, even that aside, what stories out there have intrigued you the most through time?
I mean, there's when that time when I had messages in the chat and had says to you, look, I kind of dog man's thing that's happening where I am now, about 3-4 miles from here,
Mhm.
is a place called Falkland Hill. And what's happening is the dog walkers, they're describing it, saying they're seeing a bear walking on its back legs.
Yeah.
So I knew the stepdaughter of one of the women that was seen it. So I went and seen her. And at first she was a bit suspicious. Oh, what you asked me that for? But she eventually she told me, Chris. So they walk along, they come to this car park, they see this thing, it clearly lets itself be seen. I mean, they're not trying to hide themselves here. I mean, they're running in front of cars, they knock on windows. That's not an animal, doesn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, people are walking past to hear a growl, they're looking at Paul's last documentary, exact same thing happened again. They're showing themselves. But back to that story, what's happening is they were coming along and they were seeing this thing, and then it was just walking away, and it was getting really regular that all the dog walkers were talking about it. So there was this wee part in Fife outside Glenrothes where there's dozens of people who have seen this thing. So I says to her, you must be disappointed you can't walk your dog there again. She looked at me, she says, what do you mean, did I walk my dog there again? She said, of course I walk the dog there. She said, I'm not fucking stop walking my dog there because I'm seeing that. I mean, typical, I mean, just absolutely, that's right. So she says, all we do is put the dog on the lead when we're coming to this point, in case we see it, just so we're on. But they're not interested in going to the authorities. It's no bother name, and you'll often find that. So the people that stay around Loch Ness, they're not interested in. They don't care whether people believe it's there or not. They've seen it themselves. And this is what you're finding. And if you take, for example, Paul's channel, Paul's got 7,000 subs. So if Paul puts something out that these people trust Paul with, and then these subs tell their families and friends about them, and then there's dozens of these channels there. I mean, that's where you're going yourself, Chris, with that sort of thing. So this is about information going into the general population, not coming from the government, because the government's obviously caring about the dogmen and that, but they're trying to just not create any panic, so they're not going to admit to anything. So it's like ramping it up. Everything's getting ramped up all around the world. I mean, how can dogmen in Canada act the same way as dogmen in the south of England, as the same as dogmen in France, where they're walking out and letting themselves be seen? How can all these different entities all around the world know that they're acting in unison with other ones? I mean, that shouldn't be happening. The only thing to explain that is they're all part of the same force. And this is what I think is going on.
Yeah, the interesting thing you said there in regards to the place in Fife, the Falkland Hill, but I mean, there's a place, it's not too far from there as well. It's a forest, can't remember the name of the forest. But I joined
Blair Adam.
Sorry?
Blair Adam, Kelty Woods.
Maybe. I'll need to dig it out again and look at it, but I joined a couple of forestry forums, and I was like starting threads with what was the strangest thing you found in the forest.
Right.
And once we got past the things like old Jimmy turning up in time and things like that, and doggers and all that kind of stuff, people actually started to come out with some stuff. And the place in Fife came up a number of times in regards to like large black cat sightings and things like that.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That came up there, and I'll need to dig out the forest again. I mean, I'll go back to the posts.
They're not kept in the same place all the time. Maybe in America, maybe the big forests America, there are certain bits. But what I believe is they're put down. Their mission is to be seen by a certain amount of people, certain amount of encounters, and every now and again, if they meet the right person who's out in the woods at 2 o'clock, they're allowed to take them, but they're not allowed just to run riot. And you'll notice this about the cryptid kills with sheep down in England and that. They will maybe hit a field, maybe slaughter 15, 20 sheep, and then it stops. You know, they're not allowed to leave patterns that's constantly getting tied. And you'll often find 3 cryptids in the same bit. So there'll be a dog man getting seen, there'll be a Sasquatch getting seen, and there's a big cat getting seen, right? So 100 people know something strange is getting seen, but they can't decide on what's getting seen. 30% of them seen a big cat, 30% of them seen a dog man, 30% of them seen a Sasquatch. And this is how they do it. And I know that the Wild Animals Act, you'll know what I'm talking about, the release of cats, that seems to make sense for it. But I actually believe, see, this group, these Pesha, they have military animals, just as we have dogs and that we use. And what they do is they give these animals 2 things. They give them a human brain and they give them a human voice box. So some of these big cats, I really believe these are genetically engineered and have a human brain in them and have a human voice box. Now think about this, Chris. Think about looking into a big panther's face and saying, right, this is your mission. You're going to go here. You're going to see this. This is where genetic engineering leads to. Because I just find it awfully suspicious that, say, on Dartmoor, there's these 3 cryptids getting seen. You know, there really isn't enough food to really support one. It's just no there. And yet
What's getting seen in what is it getting seen in Dartmoor, as in regards to
I'm no, I can't remember if it's Dartmoor or Exmoor, but what's happening? There's a big cat sighting sort of thing. There's one that's getting referred to a wolf type thing, and there's one that's a clear like a woodlouse, a Sasquatch type thing. And
aye.
you'll find this again and again. You'll find these, I think that's the same with where Paul is. You know, there's a big cat getting seen,
Yeah.
there's the dog man. So it's the same thing. And look, these things aren't going to be happy with each other, but they tolerate each other because they're all in the same force. And when you see how they break it up like that, and it becomes so think about this dog man, wolf genes, ape genes, pig man, pig genes, lizard genes, and so on and so on and so on. Minotaur, man with bull genes, you know, in the mythology and that. They're taking a human genome and they're splicing in animal features. And as for the so-called superpowers I have, oh, absolutely. I mean, there's things that they shouldn't be able to do. So see the cloaking, right? This is what I believe is going on. I believe they've engineered the electric eel. You get these electric producing organs. There's three types. And what I believe is happening is these electric organs are engineered into these entities and they're able to produce electromagnetic energy. So what's happening when they're cloaking is they're releasing this electricity. This electricity is causing an electromagnetic field, and the light photons are going straight through the electromagnetic field, thus rendering it invisible. You know, there's what I call the super glide, when you look up and all of a sudden the dog man's to you, it just seems to move in total silence. In fact, in Wolflands, Jeff, the gamekeeper, he talks about seeing it just gliding along across the top of the ground, not actually moving its legs.
Yeah,
But
that's a lot of people say the same. Like when reports of Sasquatch, they say it's almost like on an elevator.
that's right. That's right. Well, what I believe is going on here, there's called the atmospheric electricity. And the higher you go up, the more electricity you encounter. If you've got a huge electromagnetic field, you're interacting with that electricity. What I believe is they're literally drawing electricity for the sky. Earth's crust has a negative charge. If the cryptid produces a negative charge, it's going to lift. If it produces in a different way, it can produce thrust. And it's the same with the flying cryptids. I mean, how many times has a Mothman just went straight up in the air without flapping his wings?
Yeah.
How is he able to do that? There has to be another power source going on here, Chris. Mm-hmm. And if they're producing that and they're using it, again, there's a thing called transcranial magnetic stimulation, and the doctors use it to try and stimulate patients' brains that have had strokes. And they use magnetic fields to increase or decrease the blood flow in the brain. Now, how many times you hear the people, they encounter a cryptid, they look at the cryptid, next thing they pass out cold, they wake up several hours later. What I believe is happening is these cryptids have been taught the precise, in fact, the other good one is the sleep paralysis. When they wake, I reckon there's two types of sleep paralysis. There's a natural sleep paralysis where you're in, for a couple of seconds you come to yourself, but there's another kind. And what happens, there's usually an entity there. And that entity is producing the exact frequency for you to disengage your limbs so that you don't thrash out. You know, again and again, when you really start to get into it, it's frightening. I mean, it's absolutely frightening.
There's a one thing, just on that note, where going back to Paul again, when he was talking about in regards when he kind of was having a bit of an out of body experience when I'm going off on a tangent here, but he woke up and there was a thing on his chest, like this blue thing on his chest.
Demon, yeah.
And so it was almost like it was maybe trying to put him into that kind of basically, I don't know, out of body experience, or it was doing something and he was out of body and he'd seen it.
Well,
and there was one thing I kind of remembered as well when right at the start when he was talking about like in the night people as well, and he was talking about the thing whispering in his ear, and the thing it reminded me, I know it's a bit of a tangent this, but the thing it reminded me of was it was almost like a what's it called again, a mantra. It was saying in his ear, right? It was I can't remember the wording, but it said like a 3-letter syllable.
That's right.
And continually said it. And it was almost like a mantra. And like with some basically practices that you can do, the day mantras and all that kind of stuff. There are some that actually can help you produce an out-of-body experience and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. Like certain mantras can. And to
yeah,
me, and I know that means I've looked at some of stuff like that. And the first thing I
yeah,
thought of when I seen that with the thing whispering in his ear is like,
yeah.
that's
Try to
trying to
induce that in them.
that's trying
Yeah,
to that's trying to induce that. I mean,
yeah.
and that's I definitely thought that. I mean, I kind of and when it went further on the book and he had the blue thing on his chest. And then I kind of thought like either that thing was trying to induce it or it's happened and he's caught it in the act of what it's doing, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Uh,
Well, yeah, and that's right. See what you're saying about the mantra, but ultimately, what's happening there is there's a specific frequency that's getting said. It's coming, but
Aye.
there's nothing out there that's out with the laws of physics or the laws of nature, Chris. If that's what's going on, and it may well be that part of that's what's going on, it induces that, but it's the frequency that's getting used. And again, you find that, the hardness sort of, so you'll find a lot of the paranormal entity, it happens when there's, areas of the land where there's disturbances in the electromagnetic field. You
Yeah,
know, yeah. Things like that, because that extra energy, and when the pyramids are a classic one, mate, you can yourself, they seem to be on hotspots for energy that increase everything like that. So any natural occurring things might be increased even more. And the other thing is, what that lets the earth scientists come along and say, oh, look, it's only happening because this energy's there. They're not really seeing it. So again, it's always about cleverly mixing the natural up with the supernatural, the normal with the paranormal. It's really clever.
so what brought you to the conclusion that I know you can? I know it's like for different sources and looking at that, you can tie a lot of the um like abduction scenarios where we a lot of different phenomena and aliens and that you can link it all together, right? It's all kind of linkable. But what kind of took you to the conclusion that um they're all? I mean, what I'm getting at. So you know the paranormal. So for me, for example, the paranormal it's all linked, right?
Yeah.
At some level or another, right? Some level or another. What brought you to the conclusion that a lot of them are working together in regards to like
Because,
demean, I think, in humanity or whatever?
because there were clearly lies. There were things that the aliens were allegedly saying that didn't make sense. I knew. Look, if you're able to turn up on a planet, you've got really superb technology. You're not traveling across space, Chris. You're going through it. So, for example, there were things that allegedly was getting said that I knew wasn't right. Couldn't be right. So I knew they were lying. And again, that was just because I was lucky, because I was a wee kid. I was grounded in science and nature and that. So there's been two or three different things. And then once I went and I mean, didn't get me wrong, I've had to reset my beliefs again and again and again. You can't imagine how many times I thought I was on the right track, and then something came along that I had to
Yeah.
stop and do it
That's it. You
again.
do that. You change your
Yeah,
ideas and you
that's
move
that.
on. You get different theories and you kind of look at stuff or you add to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. So it was this multiple thing was going on, and I met a guy, and he told me some things that really blew my mind, and that was because he says to me, "Look, you have to pursue this full time. You have to stop working. You have to do this. This requires your fullest attention." He says, "If you believe what I'm telling you about this other group," he didn't. He, he hadn't long worked out himself at that point, so he didn't realise it was another group of humans or that. He just knew it was a group of aliens that were somehow behind what was going on, and that they were masquerading as the gods. So, but since I was a wee kid, I knew that somebody was going to tell me this big, amazing secret thing. And I always thought it would be like, say, in the X Files, a man would come up to the government. This was in my head how I thought it was going to happen. Whereas it was this sort of wasn't intelligent old man who had devoted his life to sort of strange things as well. And he put me on the track that he showed me that all religion was a deception. So as long as I kept a hold of that point, right, as long as I didn't get caught up in that, I would eventually get through to what was going on. And that's part of how it's happened for me too, because I was in a bad car accident and then I had to get up my work So it was almost a stroke of luck because, I mean, getting up your job and that when you've got kids and that, Chris, again, that's asking a lot. But obviously, if I really believe there's going to be an alien invasion and they're going to take the world, then if there's ever a time to get up your job and pursue your studies, this was it. But at that point, going back more than 25 years ago, that was difficult. But just serendipity, I'd been in this accident, I was in a bad way, and that, working was an issue for me anyway. So I would have just been sat in the house. So instead of just sitting in the house, I had all this stuff to kind of follow it and go down. But sometimes I've followed a thread for years and then had to give it up. I mean, the amount of times I've had to go back, and this time I was determined that I was not going to break cover until I was absolutely sure I could sit with a guy like yourself and have a conversation and and try to answer what was going on. Because I mean, we've only really covered a tiny bit yet.
Well, I know that's what I was going to say that. I mean, because I know you've got loads and loads of research that you've done, and it's you can explain where you've been with it. I mean, and it's hard to try and explain it in the space of like a
That's
couple of
right.
hours, an hour and a half. No, I
Yeah,
mean, without
that's
sounding
right.
like it's just like because you've got obviously there's loads of different parts to it, and there's loads of different kind of ideas
Yeah,
to it, and it's like trying to kind of thread that together in an hour and a
yeah,
half. It's
yeah.
hard to do in any sense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean
To
that's.
try and
I
explain
mean,
it.
I'm going for the book now. Again, that's me. I'm starting to put it together because I finally think right now I can do now. Even going back a few years ago, Chris, I wasn't that confident. I've had to wait until science has caught up to prove the things that I've suspected all along. So the genetic engineering. If I tried to see this 10 years ago, it didn't exist. You would be laughed off. But now when you see what's getting done with genetic engineering, a man with a pig's heart is a chimera. They're two different species blended together.
Yeah.
What do you think a dog man is? And a Sasquatch, a rake. When I seen it like that, everything could be explained. But then that just made it all the more horrifying to me because that went, oh, well, if that's right, then does this mean this right? You kind of when you're reading the Bible, because obviously the Bible's one of the big ones, the new. So when you read the book of Revelation, and it's written for about 2,000 years in the future, so it was written about 2,000 years ago, and it's saying the angels of the Lord are going to come and gather together for the great feast of God, where you'll dine on the bodies of kings and lay people. When you see things like that, or the angel's going to put you in the wine press, so you get this image of you getting the blood squeezed at you, take the resources for your body, Chris. I mean, it's all there, mate. It's frightening. It's all there, eh?
No, I mean that's the thing. I'll need to send you a couple of books. I'll get the one sent to you for Paul Wallace.
Yeah, aye, that would
You'll
be,
find him interesting because it
yeah,
lays a lot of this stuff out like this. And as I said, this guy came from some of the theories are slightly. He's talking about basically it was the same kind of thing. It was like farmed and basically bit for crops. And
yeah,
then we kind of went on for there, and it was like multiple different races, as in like who were overseeing that,
yeah,
and then or people watching it or coming back to
yeah,
see it, and then going for there. But it's really, really interesting his story because I find it interesting because his background, the where he came from. You know
yeah,
what I mean? He's not just he's been involved in it. No, I mean it's not just
yeah.
like
See,
basically saying coming out in regards to like we've been part of the legend. He's actually been part of it, looking at it,
yeah.
kind of stuff in it. So
See,
it's all fair
see,
that lives inside yet. One of the book where it does, um, he goes through quite a lot of places where the reptilians have been portrayed, and
right,
you can and he identifies it
yeah,
within the thingy. And then there's one of the other books where he goes on is it basically goes through like the Bible and
yeah.
how it should read with the certain interpretations that
And
he.
maybe the book Enoch as well, the Watchers and
Aye,
things like
aye, aye.
that.
Because he
Yeah,
speaks about
yeah,
that. Aye,
yeah,
aye.
yeah,
So I'll get you an address off here. I'll send you a few of them for you.
yeah,
Well, um, but I mean, totally interesting. I mean, it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, walking everybody kind of in this field looking at stuff. I mean, as I mean, like yourself. I mean, I'll look at a lot of different. You read a lot of literature, you watch a lot of stuff. You know what I mean, and you take snippets of what you think. I mean, kind of, I know me anyway. Like what kind of marries into or
yeah,
just maybe just that it's another tick in the box for actually
yeah,
what's actually happened, but another kind of area.
yeah.
I mean, but
And
that's
I
what I
mean,
was saying there with the whole kind of things for me with the kind of the aspect of the farm thing coming for Bob Monroe with the loose thing, and obviously Dolores Cannon, and then obviously like
Yeah.
other things that's coming on for that as well.
And I mean, even thing like the Silver Man. I mean, that's one of them as well. That's another thing. This being appears, he's silver, so you have this image of the alien thing. What is he? He goes so fast, he can keep up the cars, which he shouldn't be able to do. So, if this is true, then this should be affecting virtually everybody in the world. So, I believe that everybody's only a stone throw away from some sort of cryptids, some sort of legend, some sort of UFO sighting. I mean, you know, the UFO sightings in Scotland have been phenomenal. When you look at Rosalind Chapel, the connection there, and there's Paul's ancestor there and all that. So this is what they're doing. They're getting this out to everybody, and it's just what is really going on. We can't something's going on, but we just don't know what's going on, and we can't trust the government, Chris. You know, they have their own agenda. You know.
An interesting thing as well, where and I kind of link into it again, and you can read into it a bit more, but and he said it a few times, like Gary Nolan, Dr. Gary Nolan, the Harvard professor who looked into the brain study. Basically, people had close proximity UAPs or UFOs, so we still call them UAP. UFOs, and so this is people in the government, and he was like basically contracted with the CIA to actually look at the brain scans of people, and he said he could identify people who had like close proximity things with the brains, the brain with them, right? So like some kind of issue, and I think it was something that was linked, no link, but some off kind of the same as Havana syndrome and stuff like that. But some people died of it and all that kind of stuff. If not quite a lot of people died of it, and they looked at is it John Burroughs for Bentwater, who was in the Rendlesham Forest thing as well. I'm sure they looked at his as well study. He was part of it. So this guy Gary Nolan. So the way I see with him now for he talks about as if he's in the know. I mean, it's a Harvard professor, right?
Right.
He's been. I mean, in regards to this, he's quite outspoken about like UFOs and stuff like that now. But you know the way he talks that he's obviously in the know somehow. He's in like the secret college or something, right?
Yeah.
Secret college, everybody doesn't know it. It's like either people who are maybe studying this back in the day who were maybe scientists or whatever, didn't want to come forward, whatever. But I mean, that's a kind of generalization here. But in regards to the stuff that he knows, he's in a group now. I reckon he's in a group now where they share information, and he sometimes outwardly comes out and talks about stuff. And he's come out and talked about like different numbers of species. He's also talked about people talking. There was like he was getting interviewed a wee while back, and somebody was saying about obviously if this was real, and they asked him. I said, "What do you think in regards to like the alien kind of hypothesis? Is it?" And he's like, "I know, 100%, 100% is real, right?"
Yeah.
And he also said, people are saying, well, this was in a different interview, but they said to him in one of the questions, I think I'm not saying it correctly, right, but I know the kind of the rough kind of aspect there. They said to him, what was it? So what would be kind of everybody's interpretation of this coming forward and knowing about UFOs? Are they going to cause mass hysteria, or what's it going to be like for the public and all this kind of stuff? And he said, well, there's a lot of things can happen. You know what I mean? He said, well, it was really one thing, for example. He said, what if you found out that you were farmed? What if you found that you weren't at the top of the food chain?
Yeah.
Right? So that's him, right? He's one of the ones, the top ones now, who's in the know of this, right? Along with you've got other, so he's in the kind of scientific aspect there, invented loads of stuff, Harvard professor, and he's quite outspoken about it. You know he's in the know, right? You've got Lua Elizondo, right? Lua Elizondo came out. He used to work in the ATIP program, right? Came out for the government, done loads of podcasts, try to get out the word out there, talking about everything. And he'd said as well that they basically the same kind of thing. What if you found that you weren't if you weren't at the top of the food chain?
Yeah.
Right. And then so you're getting that kind of.
Do you think that's a preparation, Chris? Do you think that's what they're?
See, personally, I think. I mean, personally, I think that obviously there's like a part of the government that wants it out, a part of the government that doesn't want it out. But I think the part that wants it out knows something's going to happen and they're trying to push it out. before whatever it is happens.
Yeah.
Don't know what it is going to happen,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying I buy into the whole aspect that there's going to be an end of day scenario or there's going to be a rapture event or anything like that. But
yeah,
what I'm saying is that
it's heading towards something, mate. Yeah.
I mean, you've got the experiencers say it's heading towards something. You've got people in the legend say it's heading towards something, and you've got these people coming out. They're trying to push this out for some reason, right? And I don't think it's just a case of they're pushing it out. It's been a program.
You're talking about the UFO and the committees in that America.
Aye,
Is that
aye, aye. I mean,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm not talking about. I mean, the committees that are going on and the hearings are going on, all that kind of stuff. They're just obviously doing the rounds and trying to get this out, right? So they're trying to fight against to get it out, right? But there's some push within the government trying to get this out, and there's people who are in the know about certain things, and they know there's either something's going to happen or whatever, right? And you get people like John Ramirez, who worked in the CIA for a good number of years, and he's come out as an experiencer, and he's talking about, well, he changed it. He had one podcast. He said he knows in an official capacity that there's going to be some type of event in 2027, right? Chris Bledsoe, who had recently, he came out as an experiencer, got a book. I mean, he was like a abductee stroke experiencer, right? Still sees things, some things still visit him where he stays and all that kind of stuff. Brought out a book recently called UFO of God, and he had said that there's going to be something in 2026, the end of 2026, 27, something like that. And that John Ramirez had mentioned that a few times, but he didn't allude to what it was. He just basically said he heard in an official capacity there's some type of event. Lua Elizondo in another podcast had said, I'll need to dig out what it was, but he said something like about where we're going to probably. I think somebody asked him a question about where it's going to go, how it's going to get out, the whole kind of story is going to get out. And he said, well, it might not be for any of us, it might not be for that. It might be something else, might see something like the James Webb or something like that. And then,
yeah.
But he doesn't say, when you watch his interviews and stuff like that, like Lou Elizondo doesn't say nothing that he doesn't need to say, right?
Right.
And he's always I mean, I'm not saying an agenda, but when he's saying certain things, it's like you're thinking he knows something about why he's saying that, right?
Yeah.
And he's also said as well, he also talked about like a thing where he was getting in a podcast and somebody was asking about like, this is what he said. When you listen to some of the things he says, right, he chooses his words wisely, and but he says things to get a kind of point across so people or some people will understand it. And he was talking about like somebody was asking a question about like aliens and all that kind of stuff, and why would they know land in the right of lawn or whatever, that whole kind of cliche or whatever. And he says something like, well, what if they're already here, or what if they're this, what if they're that? He says, I'll give you an example. And he says, when you've got the pandas in the zoo in China or whatever else, they've got like they've got panda keepers who dress up as pandas, and they're in the enclosure with them, so they didn't frighten them or spook them or anything like that, and they can still kind of thing him. And he said, then you've got another thing. He talked about a certain animal, which can basically change its shape or colour and all that, a chameleon and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was talking about things like that, about basically saying there's like they could be here fitting in amongst us kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is coming from a guy who ran like the ATIP program, right, and came out of the government. So if you watched all his kind of stuff, right, when you go right through his interviews and all that kind of stuff, there's other things he's been asked as well. And he talked about because if you were here on Earth as a civilization, and he said if you were going to try and have some kind of marker or something here, how would you keep it? He asked this guy, Kurt Jamungo, this, right, who's like he's a mathematician, physicist kind of guy, right? But he's got like a podcast called Theory of Everything. And he'd said, well, what would you do? He said, well, maybe I would make some kind of like a stone or some kind of unperishable stone or whatever, so it wouldn't diminish. He goes, well, what if it was on Earth? He says, when you look back, he said, we can only record our time scope back to about 8,000 years ago, then there's nothing. He says because obviously the way the Earth basically you've got like all the kind of Earth and the processes in the Earth and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, the
Overlays
ice
itself,
ages and things like that.
and all that kind of stuff. So there's no records like there's no lot of records going back past 8,000 years ago. So how would you record something if there was like if you were before that? And he says, well, maybe I would. The other guy said, well, maybe I would put something in like a retrograde orbit, so it could be found later. And then he said, well, that's if it stays in that orbit.
Yeah,
And then he went on to say, this is Leo Elizondo saying this. He goes, well, what about if you had put like information in DNA, right?
yeah,
If you put information in DNA. And he started talking about I'll need to go back and because it's been a while since I kind of followed him. I used to kind of cut the clips out and stuff and look at all these different kind of things that some people wouldn't catch on to. And he was talking about a change for 70,000 years ago for what happened to us. And I mean, and there's there's a lot of different ones like that. It's worth going back and kind of looking at them.
yeah,
I used to post them up just to be snippets of bits where especially with that and this guy like John Ramirez. But you've got like quite a lot of high level people coming out. Like you've got Lulozondo, you've got like Jim Simivan, you've got what do you call it, John Ramirez, all credible people, all seem genuine. I'm not saying they're not getting any kind of, but it's like they're trying to get this out there, right?
yeah,
And then if you look back before all that kind of came out, right, you had Tom DeLonge came out, probably about 2016. It was maybe slightly before or maybe slightly after. It was before like the Tic Tac event came out and all that, right? He was on Joe Rogan. He was talking about obviously where how he kind of started in regards to trying to get the information, going to kind of approaching the governments and all that kind of stuff, and saying that he could probably get it out there better than they could, the information, all that kind of stuff, and this, and this. Wasn't getting any traction. Then he got somebody approached him and saying, right, we'll take you to see this guy. And then he ended up seeing somebody else. They went and seen somebody in NASA, right? And they gave him some information. So he ended up he got the company obviously to the Stars Academy, and then he was in talks with guys for Lockheed Martin, well, for skunk works and stuff like that. He was in talks with generals and stuff like that, talking about different things they'd found. And they talked about other stuff where it's that he said that totally scared them,
yeah,
right? It totally scared them. And that he's never relayed, right? But so he ended up, he had different things come out. He had like the book scenarios, Secret Machines, and that was like, there was other people involved in that, writing it as well. But like then the thing that kind of he comes out with as well, where he puts posts out there. I posted it recently, which was like this thing is more and it can't be if you think of this, this can't just be things like just UFOs coming on or being ETs or just the discovery of that, right? I'll go back to that in a minute because when he was talking about before bringing this out, it was on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan thought it was like fucking nuts, right? And then in 2017, the Tic Tac videos hit. He had
right,
all these guys working. He had Lula Zondo. He had like Jim Simivan. He had one of the guys for Lockheed Martin, Steve Justice, working for him on this on the what do you call it, the To the Stars Academy. They were going to
right,
develop documentaries, try and get the word out, do films, and try and actually develop the technology, right? And so that actually came to fruition. He was doing that. And then it was a case of when Hillary Clinton lost the election and they had that hacking scandal and stuff like that, they found emails between Tom DeLonge, John Podesta, which is her second in command.
that's right, that's
And
right,
they also had the guy called General McCaslin, who's supposed to be one of the keeper at the time, one of the keepers of the program, the program, or whatever. So that all kind of thing came to fruition. So it came down the line a bit when he comes out with statements now and again, was saying one of the ones he said recently. He said knowing this thing is more scary than. Was it scary? I know the word was scary or no, but he said more scary than 9/11, COVID, and all the world
all together.
together, right? So I kind of think on that. I mean, like, what's he actually been told? Has he been told the truth for a start? Has he maybe been told like like a top secret lie, right? But at the same time, he seemed to know kind of. I mean, they were sharing information with him, and then they ended up like he was doing all that kind of stuff. I don't know what happened there because it ended up kind of fell down. I don't know if maybe he was talking too much or they just got that bit of agenda out first and they moved on to something else now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever. But I mean, when you look at all that kind of stuff going on, and you've got all these wee snippets behind the scene, you know what I mean? It does make you think.
Yeah. That's right, mate.
You know what I mean?
It's
But
realist. I mean, you go back 4 or 5, 10 years even, and it was kind of an interest you had, but now it's touching. It's actually relating to you in your life, Chris. And I think, yeah, and that's what makes it scary because we know everything's about technology. Who has the most advanced technology has the power. It's always been that, and we're about to face someone that just has incredible technology, and we're really at their mercy.
now, I mean, with all this happening, right? With all this happening and everything coming out, I mean, the recent hearings came out. You've had David Grush coming out. You've had there's got to be more hearings happening as well after this. This will just be the start of them.
Yeah.
They are trying to kind of some of them, the ones who didn't want it out there are pushing back. But I mean, yeah, I do think to myself, right? Sometimes I do think, well, the ones that are pushing back, are they pushing back because it's probably in our best interest to push back?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that sometimes I do think that. I mean,
Yeah, and that's fair. That's yeah,
a lot of us kind of think to yourselves like, what's these are the bad part of the government and all that kind of stuff. People want it out because we should know, which is fine. But you've got the other part who didn't want it pushed out, and I do think to myself now and again, is there a reason behind that? You know what I mean? And one thing that always sticks in mind is like when Lou Elizondo said again, he was talking about when it's almost like the element surprises away. Because when the element surprises away, he says that's when you attack because like you need to do it.
yeah.
I'm not saying
Strike.
that's going to happen or anything like that, right? But you've got all these different things, and I mean, we know this has been going on. I know like a lot of us have followed this for years and stuff like that for years. I know that, although I believe, and then when some of this stuff's been happening, you're like, again, like even a couple of years ago when it was coming out, you're like, this is real.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
That's
happening.
right. Yeah,
This
that's
is
right.
happening.
That's right.
And there's so many things that can tie it together now as well. It's not
But
just
at least you're ahead of the curve.
well, I mean, sometimes you think that being ahead of the curve, or because you follow the news feeds in it and all that kind of stuff. Because a lot of Joe Public, you talk to people who didn't follow it because you didn't see it in the news cycles. I mean,
That's
talk
right.
about the UFO kind of aspect in
Yeah,
America and that.
yeah.
On the news cycles, I mean, it hits like the American news. No, a lot. I mean, like 5 minute snippets at the end of the weather or whatever else. You're getting a wee bit more traction right now. You get it in some of you get it. The Guardian follows it now and again a wee bit, but again, it's few and far between. And then but you think to yourself where all this stuff's gone on, and you do think I know I think things like you've got the Tom the Long stuff, and you think okay, what is really going on, or what really do they know? Is it quite nefarious? Is it all right? Or is it some kind of impending doom, whatever? And then you think to yourself, well,
Yeah.
it's like, do I really want to know? I mean, I do want to
Well,
know, but at the same time, you
yeah.
think to
That's
yourself,
ignorance is bliss. Yeah, yeah. I mean, but that's what. But that choice is getting taken away from us now, Chris. We're not
oh,
allowed to.
aye.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, knew we're going to have to confront it.
Hmm.
And the bottom line is, all these different groups ultimately are trying to do what's right by themselves, right by their family. I mean, it's true what Ronald Reagan says. The only thing that will unite the world is some sort of alien force coming in and bringing us together, because then we'll forget our
I
problems.
mean, that going back to that statement, I mean, what did he know back then to say that?
Yeah, well, obviously he had privilege to certain crashes and that, all that was there. I mean, I believe part of these things with the crashes is that ultimately they can't hide them. They're doing it in such a way that eventually the military that were there, eventually as they grow older, they tell their story. It always comes out. It's impossible to keep it a secret,
But,
and I think that's all calculated into the revelations.
but the thing is now, though, right, where, and going off on another kind of tangent to it and that, right, where like the whole reason a lot of this came out now, apart from it getting pushed out to a certain angle, they've done that to start off with the Tom DeLonge thing, got the videos out. They've then went and briefed Congress, right? Like you're talking about Louis Lozando and other people, and then the Congress are starting to chase this up now, right? Because it's a money thing, right? And all that kind of stuff, right? If quite a lot of this stuff's hidden in private industry, right? And there's like crash retrieval teams in private industry. It's all money. I mean, like it's all when something crashes now, it's total paid up. I mean, it's like right, let's get that because we could do this, and this, right? And it's like and it was like on another aspect, like Avi Loeb was talking on Andy McGrillen's podcast, that UFO podcast. Just I listened to the episode earlier today, and one of the good analogies that he said, what was it? He'd said, the day talking about private industry and the governments, right? And this could be any country because it happens in your country as well.
Absolutely.
And he said that it's like the same type of relationship between a psychiatrist and their patient. If the patient go in the private industry, are getting paid. They're getting paid after the government to actually look into this and develop it, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, the government that actually help covering it up, and then they're getting paid to do it. They'll get paid if they develop anything. You know what I mean? Then they're actually the government. They're actually paying the money to actually cover it up as well, which is just a crazy circle, right? But he says it's almost like the relationship between a patient and a psychiatrist, where if a psychiatrist gets the patient better, they'll no pay them.
They lose their money. Yeah.
So that's kind of where that was a good analogy. And that's where we are. That's where he kind of hangs for like private industry and the governments in regards to this.
See if you could have one question answered, Chris. I mean, if at all, what question would you like answered most of all? What's a big sort of drive for you to find out something about? I mean,
well, in regards to this, like it's, I mean, see the thing with the whole ET thing or aliens or like basically things like extra dimensional things or anything like that. I mean that you've got all that kind of stuff going on, but I want to know the links between all of this and life and death. I'm not just talking about like life after death or anything like that. I'm talking about how the phenomena links into life. Like, no, I'm not even saying life after like after death or whatever. I'm kind of talking about how it all kind of links in together.
Kind of the spiritual side of it all.
I mean, I wouldn't even say it's like spiritual. You know what I mean? It's kind of other people would say it's spiritual, Paul, but I would, I mean, I'm just how you link the phenomena, and how it links in with us in regards to life after death. You know what I mean? And how that is because that is linked.
Absolutely,
it's extremely linked, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
With people, life after death stuff or experiences and that kind of stuff, right? People can see these things then, or they see things like that then, or they go somewhere else, right? And when you look at the work of Bob Monroe, for example, and he goes through like past life regression, and he goes beyond that to some point where he's came from somewhere else to Earth, for example, and it's almost like they're coming here to experience something, right? And that's kind of what it is. There's different things going on. People, like in his aspect, people are coming here to experience things for different places and then get stuck here.
Yeah.
And they go through the cycles of the past life or their lives, and then they can't escape here because they're linked too much into like the lives. And that kind of story does repeat itself through other like Gnostic stuff and things.
Yeah,
like that,
that's right.
I mean,
that's
and
right.
that kind of interests me quite a lot. You know what I mean? That interests me quite a lot. It's not just the day with like life after death. It's nothing like that. It's kind of about like, I wouldn't even say where we go when we die. It's where we could probably go when we're here as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that interests me. Big subject though. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Aye. What about yourself? I'll ask the same question to you. So if you could find
you probably answered that just as well as what I could answer, to be honest with you, mate. I mean, obviously, I want to. I mean, I see the thing is, I didn't want to be right about this, Chris. It's a bizarre situation. You can, if anybody could come along and make better sense of what's getting seen, I would happily go with that. You know, it's no, I
Yeah.
didn't want it to be right, Ken, because then I think, oh no, that means because there's going to be a bloodbath. There's no doubt about that. I mean, all the religious texts say there's going to be a slaughter when they come back because there has to be some sort of balancing out the population and that. So it's going to be bad. So I can't that's not going to happen because the thing is, I spent a lot of time looking for theories that might be similar to see if anybody had got there before me, you know, to maybe or make find how they would explain this to satisfy the sort of questions that seem to be getting answered.
Aye.
So it's in some ways, I feel yeah, I'm on the right track, but then it's not the right track I want to be on. I wish it was a better track. You know, I wish it's strange. Like it just, I've had to. I mean, I'll be honest with you, mate. This nearly broke me a few times. It
Yeah.
nearly broke me emotionally. You can because I was literally on my own with it. You can. There was several years where it was just me, the books, the Bible, the Quran, you know, the cryptids, the whole thing, and I really lost the plot a few times. You know, just kind of pulled back for the edge because it just the kind of if this is real, the enormity of what it is.
Yeah.
So I understand that when I'm speaking to somebody about this, I need to give them time. You know, I need to let them go away and mull it out, or maybe come back with something. You can't go, what about this? Go like that. I understand that. But when somebody like Paul, who's helping me, give me opportunities, and this one included, you know, once somebody like Paul, when he could see it, that means a lot to me, you know, because Paul's did a lot of the groundwork with people that I've not done. You can have been virtually a loner for all this time, but I know I can't maintain that position, and I need to come out. So this is it. It can't go into sort of public. But I understand why people didn't want to believe this, and you wouldn't believe the amount of people who I've spoke to, and they've just walked into my life and never came back because they just never wanted to hear on the mirror. It was just too much on top of how difficult life can be. The last thing they want to hear is, oh, you get 20 years down the line and then this is what's waiting on you. Something that's simply
Aye,
too
no, I get that. Aye, I
yeah.
do get that. Aye.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole kind of subject. I mean, it's like I've not got all the kind of same theories as yourself. I've got different theories on stuff and different kind of ideas, and then you kind
And
of,
that's fine
and
because
that's
I
that. I
can
mean, that as well. Sometimes, though, I mean, a day. I mean, there is days where, like, a day. Didn't get me wrong. I think about coming away from it, and
yeah.
just because it's like, but there is things that you'll read or things you'll look at or things that will actually be coming out factual that you're like, that's like you kind of that you can see there's a kind of pattern here or whatever. But for me anyway, I do think about sometimes where like you can come away from it. And I know a lot of people in the field, the UFO field, feel like that for the fact that because they're either sometimes frustrated by it, and you think maybe something's going to happen or whatever else, and they're not getting anywhere, or they're getting somewhere, but it's just they're on their own with it.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
it's a case of if it's like if you didn't know that or didn't research it, you could just go on with your life, right? But at the same time, you didn't want to be oblivious to it.
Yeah.
If it is right, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
That's right.
That's it. But I mean, in regards to some of the stuff that I'd kind of read on the Robert Monroe stuff, they're worth a read. And that, I mean, and a day,
I think I have one of Monroe's books actually. I think I've
they're
got
worth
his
a
one
read in
somewhere.
regards to for what the way he explains like life after death and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And it made sense to me as well because I was kind of looking into Gnostic stuff and things like that, and
Yeah.
it just looked the same as that, but it was a different way of doing it. And then there was, I mean, there's other stuff. I mean, one of the saving graces that Paul Wallace had said, and it was all to do about us being farmed and all that kind of stuff, right? And he'd kind of said that there's a comment, I can't remember the actual comment, but it's something about the Bible or whatever. But the way he described it, he said, regardless of us like if people think it's a really bad thing thinking that we've been farmed, if we have been farmed and all that kind of stuff, then it's like if you the way he describes it is like the infinite particle is, you know what I mean? It's all been created by God, or all been created by like some higher kind of being or whatever, or force or whatever. So regardless of what's been made by whoever or whatever else, regardless of that, the energy and particles
I mean, our ancestors faced saber-toothed cats. Who's to say that what we're facing is any more scary than what they faced? You know, okay, there's always been life everywhere is up against it all the time. This just seems so fucking unbearable. I mean, see me. I mean, I didn't have a partner, Chris. I couldn't bring somebody into this now. I couldn't ask a woman to come into this now. Like, no way where my beliefs are, how hardcore I am, for want a better word. I just have to accept that. You know, that's just the way it is, because there were times I could only be on my own. You can't, everything was, I mean, sometimes incredibly selfish just to stick to this thing when everything was falling apart about me and that, eh? So, but that's just, but if you really do believe, as I do, that they're coming, then my happiness in life is irrelevant. It means absolutely nothing. It's about doing the right thing.
So, in regards to, have you started writing the books?
Yeah, I have about 30,000 words sitting. And now I'm like I say, now I'm finally settled. I could answer the questions I want to answer and that. So this is what I'm going at the new. And on the public side, Paul's helped me again, get me sort of gigs and that, getting stone the bindman and that. So that's where it is. And I mean, it's. I mean, I wouldn't change nothing new. I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, there were times, like I say, I was almost suicidal, for want of a better word, but I asked for it. You know, and I believe there's a creator. I mean, I believe and that. But obviously, there couldn't go into that the night. There just wasn't the time for that, Chris. But so when you're talking about that side, absolutely that's all relevant. You know, absolutely it is. And I think people didn't quite understand it. Again, spiritual isn't a great word to use because it's the wrong connotations, but this is much more than just ETs coming from another planet.
Oh, totally. It's a total it's a mega convoluted discussion, like when there's like loads of aspects to it. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's just so much stuff that kind of merges in. But I mean, I think the things that stood out for me, like I've read like hundreds over the years and whatever, the things that stood out for me, I mean, in regards to, as I said, more recently, is like the Bob Monroe stuff, some of the Dolores Cannon stuff, and then it's certainly like the Paul Wallace stuff that's came out recently.
Right.
I'll get you your details off you when we finish. You can ping me it via email and I'll send you the Paul Wallace book.
Right, mate. I would appreciate it.
Get a look at that. That's quite good, like, you know what I mean? It is, and it is, I mean, for where this guy's came from, as I'm saying, it's he kind of worked for the Vatican and stuff like that, and doing stuff in regards to that. So it's that was his job, to kind of look at the scriptures and all that kind of stuff, and all that. I think actually he had what was it? Did he have an accident or something? I can't remember. He was done something, but he ended up like he had an accident. He had a bit more time to actually focus more on stuff, and he was looking through all that, and it was the way it was worth looking at. Yeah. So if we're going to kind of sum up for there, so what are you kind of looking at next? Just kind of plodding on and just try to get more of the book kind of written and stuff like that.
Yeah. Try stay that steady course. Get this done. Sort of try to increase the public profile, you know, and try to just find a way to get it out there and just see what comes with that, because you know. I just need to wait and see what's coming with.
That's the thing, as I was saying earlier on, right? And it's like people maybe listening to the night, and it's like if they've not been at a lot of these different subjects and hearing them all together and like a traunchy, like maybe like an hour and a half or whatever, it's a lot to take in. But if you've done the same way, for example, because I can imagine you've got quite a lot of information you want to get out there. I mean, you've got 30,000 words, I know you've got to get more, but if you took, for example, just let's say the Bob Monroe stuff or the Dolores Cannon stuff, and you tried to talk about all the kind of different experiences and all the kind of stuff they've done, or like multiple books in the space of an hour and a half. I mean, it would sound mental, but
that's
like,
right.
but when you get introduced into it and you kind of work through it or read through it, then it's a bit more understandable how it kind of
And
flows.
you need the right person to bounce it off it to come back with the right thing, because obviously you just need a help with it. You can't, it's right, you can't need too much of one concentrated area. I kind of try to put sort of wee pieces of the jigsaw puzzle kind of across the board, and just stick with the things that obviously are a paranormal channel. So to hear come into it with, like that for this angle with you, but maybe it would come from a different angle with somebody else.
No, totally.
But
Aye, that's. I can imagine somebody feel like a more religious side in it, having a different kind of angle on it as
yeah,
well. Things like
yeah.
that. Aye.
See, I went to St Andrews University in 2001 to do a course in biblical studies. Now, if I was going to go to university, what I really wanted to go was study wildlife, but I couldn't waste this opportunity because it was a disability scholarship. So I had to pick the biblical studies in order, because I knew that I had to get my head around the Bible, because undoubtedly that's the book that's been had the most profound effect on humanity, certainly the Western world, in the last 2,000 years. And I was sort of against it. I tried to read it before and just couldn't get my head about it. This person God was just seemed like a brute to me, eh? But I had to force myself. No, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this right. I can't do it. What is a biology subject degree if I'm not going to learn the things that I need to learn for where I'm going with this, because by that point I was already committed to this. That's it. So that's been about 25 years on that now. And now, like I say, just now I'm finally ready to maybe speak to somebody like yourself who has, and that's different from speaking for somebody who doesn't know anything, because you're getting feedback and that, you're getting led through it and stuff like that. So I could only say thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, listen, well,
Really
thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on as well, and maybe get you back on again sometime when you're a bit
That
through
would
it as
be
well. We
brilliant.
can maybe have a few more discussions on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So listen, for me, for the Scottish Paranormal podcast, thanks for coming on, Rick, tonight.
Thank you, Chris.